Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. Today I'm watching how a $3 hot dog uncovered a $24.7 million lottery scam by Vince Vintage. The whole premise is incredibly ridiculous, so it sounds promising. Link to the original video will be down in the description below.
So how do you achieve the American dream if your dad doesn't own an emerald mine? You walk into the store, you plunk down $1, and with nothing but luck,
because the American dream doesn't exist.
It's a great dream, of course. I mean, we all know the odds are astronomical. But what if we could maybe control those odds? Or better yet, eliminate them completely. Illegally winning a mind-boggling $24 million over the course of a decade.
How would you control
the greatest lottery
odds
of all time? But you gotta
You'd have to work
how the hell did he pick the winning lottery numbers multiple times for over 10 years? Well, it's kind of simple. Eddie Tipton worked for the lottery.
Yeah, it's probably the only way you could actually do it.
2010, the Hot Lotto in Iowa held its drawing
how
for a
else would you
$16.4
know the results?
jackpot. Now, the winning ticket had been purchased at a Quick Trip convenience store in Des Moines, Iowa. Why would you live there? But for someone, the American dream, became very real. But then the ticket went unclaimed for days, and then it was weeks, and then it was months.
Well, it's been almost a month since we had announced that we had a Hot Lotto.
Why wouldn't he claim it?
$16.5 million Hot Lotto winner. Person
although he works at the lottery, so he probably can't just
know that they have it.
And then it was nearly
claim it
a
because
year. Now, believe it or not,
he probably can't play the lottery
want the money to be
if
claimed.
he works there.
It's good PR to have the big winner holding a big old check. And in the meantime, they were flooded with over 200 fake winner claims. Oh, my friend who died in a car
Not surprising.
had the ticket. The winning ticket to my grandma's casket.
It is a winning
ticket
ticket after all.
What the public didn't know was they had a video of the person buying the ticket along with the serial number. And anyone that wanted to take the claim had to verify both of those, which no one could nearly a year later. Now, public reminders would issue every single month, and it even made national news about this unclaimed ticket. Because 1 year after that purchase date, the 6th...
Couldn't he just give the ticket to somebody else, like a friend of his or someone who he's just acquaintanced with, but not close to? I feel like that would solve the issue. Just give him the serial number. Although, could he provide proof of purchase that way? I don't know, maybe.
$16 million ticket would expire to nothing. Now, 30 days before the expiration date, Canadian attorney Philip Johnston called in and provided what no one else could, the correct serial numbers for the winning lottery ticket. And he had said he had purchased the ticket himself, but then said he could not personally deliver the ticket because he was too sick to come down from Canada. Maybe it sounds a little sketch, but they asked him what he wore on the day that he bought it. And Philip paused. He was wearing a tweed jacket with dress pants and dress shoes. Now, although he gave the correct serial number, the man in the video buying the winning ticket was wearing a hoodie and sweatpants. He was lying, so they didn't give him the jackpot. Now, a week later, Philip Johnston calls in again, but now with a different story, stating that he had actually told a little white lie, that it wasn't him that bought the ticket, but he was representing the winner of it, and he was a wealthy man who wanted to remain anonymous. Now, there's just one problem with that. It's against the rules of the Iowa lottery. All winners' names have to be made public, but they still didn't want to reveal the winner's name. But then on the final day,
they just won't get the money
before the $16 million ticket expired, an
reveal the
attorney
name
from New York
or no
shows
money
up with the actual winning ticket in his hand.
We've been looking for 365 days for this, and with 1 hour and 50 minutes left, the two individuals you just met brought us what we believe is the winning ticket for the Hot Lotto jackpot.
But this time, the ticket was signed by a trust in the Belize, and the trust beneficiary was a shell company in Belize, and who was the president of that shell company? Oh, it was Philip Johnston, the attorney that called in the first time.
We've got to make sure that we're paying the right amount and the money to the proper and appropriate persons, so we are not paying this particular ticket today.
Then, in a last-ditch effort, the attorneys asked if they could claim the money in cash and then turn it over to the state and they could give it to charity.
But lottery lawyers declined based on concerns about the legality of the purchase, possession, and presentation of the ticket.
We couldn't verify the winner.
Now, the attorneys were so angry at this point that they actually threatened to sue the Iowa lottery until they realized that they would have to act.
Can they even sue them though? I mean, all you have to do is give the name of the person. Of course, they can't do this because the person who bought it works at the lottery, so I don't think he's allowed to play, but I highly doubt suing them is gonna work.
Actually reveal the real winner's name in the court case.
The lottery received yet another letter. The purchaser of the ticket has elected to remain anonymous and withdraw the claim. And to think all that person had to do was provide birth date and address, and they would have walked away with millions of dollars.
And the $16 million jackpot went to no one. Now, why were they trying so hard to hide the name of this ticket winner? Was the real winner possibly murdered? murdered, maybe a victim of blackmail, or maybe even theft. Either way, the whole thing stunk, and the FBI was called in to investigate. Now, it seemed a bit strange when
I guess it is
the security
16
director
million.
for the multi-state lottery, lived in a 8,500 square foot mansion decked out with a 20-seat custom home theater.
How does he
and a
purchase
basketball
that?
court. Now, Eddie didn't make that much money. His coworkers at the lottery often wondered how the hell could he afford a baller mansion.
Does he have a sugar daddy? Probably.
$90,000 a year. Now, he told his lottery coworkers that his house was just his one vice, and that even though he was single and in his 40s, that one day he was gonna have a huge family. And this story kind of made sense. It was too.
I don't think someone who is single in their 40s has much time to make a family. Like, you got a good 10 years, and after that, you're not gonna have a family anymore. Once you get to 40, just be prepared to, well, maybe not stay single for the rest of your life, but forget about the family part, because that's not happening.
2007, a lot of people bought homes they couldn't afford. So no one, not even his coworkers at the lottery, suspected a thing. Now, as the FBI investigated the case, it kind of went cold. There wasn't a lot of evidence. There's too many dead ends. Until 4 years later, it ended up on prosecutor
They
Rob
actually
Sands'
spent
desk. Now, nobody
4
expected
years
him
on
to
this.
get anywhere, but Rob Sands was
Technically
the hot
5,
new prosecutor
'cause
on
they
the
have to
block
wait
that
a year
wanted
for
to
the
make
ticket.
a name for himself. But all Rob had to work with was a grainy video of the dude buying the ticket that they didn't know, and the name of some Better Call Saul Canadian attorney that called in with the winning ticket. So investigators flew up to Canada
There's gotta
to
be
interview
something
the first
else in the
attorney.
video.
But then he said that he was actually collecting the ticket on behalf of another attorney that was from Texas. And when they went to that attorney, he said the winning ticket had been given to him by Texas businessman Robert Rhodes. But Robert Rhodes looked and sounded nothing like the guy in that video. So 4 years after having the lottery drawing held, Rob Sands released that video nationwide to ask for help in trying to identify the guy in that video, along with an audio track of his voice.
Oh, they do have audio.
Now, within days, thousands of people called in to the FBI, and it sounded
that
like
simple?
my
No
grandpa.
thanks.
Oh, it sounded like my
Gonna get him
coworker.
caught.
But one name kept coming up. You see, dozens and dozens of lottery employees from across the country had called in and instantly recognized the voice as Eddie Tipton. But this was a little hard to believe. I mean,
Why did
Eddie
he have to
Tipton
say
was the
anything? Just
security
shake-
director
why didn't
for
he
the
just shake his head
multi-state
no?
lottery, meaning he's the guy in charge of making sure no one cheated, and legally couldn't even buy lotto tickets. But
So he
what
can't
were the
actually buy it.
odds that Eddie Tipton
If he knew what the winning ticket was, why didn't he just tell his friend or another family member to go and buy that ticket? Why did he do it himself? If one of his family members won, that would be suspicious. If one of his friends won, it would also still be a little suspicious. But it would be far easier to actually claim the ticket than it is now, because now he can't claim it.
could also pick the winning numbers. The coincidences were too far. So how are the winning numbers picked for the lottery? Well, back in the day, the numbers were put on ping pong balls, whipped around in a cage, and one by one were taken out in the public eye so everyone could see the contest was legit. But even this system had problems when lottery workers cheated the game by filling some of the balls with water to improve their own odds, and then when those balls exploded on live TV, a new system was needed. Now today,
could actually
lotteries pick
cheat
the winning
in
numbers
that.
using
Wow.
computers, but to understand the real genius of how Eddie Tipton cheated, we need to remember that computers never do anything randomly. So how do you get a random number on a computer? Well, you actually kind of don't. So it starts with an input number and runs it through a complex math problem called the random number generator.
No number is
to
truly
output a final
random.
number that looks random. But if you have that same input number, you will always get that same final number. And that's kind of the problem. So to get a truly random final number, one that you could use for the lottery, you need a random input number. So lotteries measure the radiation of americium-241 in the air. That number's plugged into a random number generator, and that comes up with the winning lotto numbers. Now, what's americium-241, you might ask? Well, it's the microscopic nuclear fallout from weapons tests over the last 50 years that surrounds everyone on Earth. I mean, it really is no big problem. But remember, each time you take that same input number and
Doesn't
run it
sound
through that
like
problem,
not a
you
big
will always
problem.
get that same final random number. So like in a perfect theoretical sense, it actually isn't random. But that was the crack that Eddie Tipton managed to exploit. Now, in January of 2015, Eddie Tipton was arrested for defrauding the Iowa lottery. Now, the feds had a decent amount of evidence against him. Video was clear, the audio analysis matched up with his voice, and even though Eddie said he was out of town the day that ticket was bought, well, his own phone records show that he was in that store at that time when the winning ticket
Well, how
was
is he
bought.
going to get
Now,
out
in
of this?
custody,
There's no way he gets out of this.
Word about how or if he even did it, and the feds had no.
He was in the place where the ticket was bought at the time that it was bought. It's clearly him in the video. He works for the lottery and he works with whatever the winning numbers are. Do you really need much more evidence? It's pretty obvious it was him.
No idea how he did it. So the only thing they could nail him for was buying a lottery ticket as a lottery worker.
Now again, these fraud charges against
How
Tipton,
much
we're
could you be
told, are
charged
based
for that?
solely on the belief that he attempted to falsely redeem a lottery ticket and have nothing to do with any evidence that he was somehow able to use his position and expertise.
If he just bought the ticket and won a small amount, I don't think it would really be a problem, even if he can't buy a lottery ticket because he works there. But the fact he won the jackpot shows that this is not a coincidence.
To manipulate the game.
But then the skeletons came out of Eddie's closet because Eddie had gotten his job as the director of security for the lottery as a convicted felon for burglary. How does that even happen? Now in court, Eddie would demand a fast and swift trial, but prosecutor Rob Sands actually thought this was odd. Most white-collar criminals don't get caught, but prosecutor burglary. How does that even happen? Now in court, Eddie would demand a fast and swift trial, but prosecutor Rob Sands
like he has more to hide.
This was odd. Most white-collar criminals don't get caught on the first time they commit a crime. He thought maybe Eddie wanted to shorten the investigation time because maybe there was more fraudulent lottery tickets out there.
He's hiding more things than just this one ticket.
Now when Eddie was asked about who Robert Rhodes was to him, you know, the Texas business guy that had the $16 million ticket, well, Eddie said he had no idea who he was. He didn't know what he looked like. He never even heard of the name.
Just a random acquaintance?
They were friends on Facebook. They had been co-workers for the last 10 years. They were best friends. When Eddie Tipton was asked what he did for work, he had failed to mention one little detail, that he was the guy that wrote the program that picked the winning lottery numbers. Now at this point it looked like an inside job, or it was a huge amount of coincidences that had led Eddie Tipton's
it can't be a coincidence, not at this point.
The lottery. Now there was one huge problem with this entire case. The computer that the numbers were used to pick the winning lottery numbers had been wiped clean 3 times over. Now, although there was no evidence about how this actually happened, the feds had a decent theory. Now, the Hot Lotto uses 2 computers that are locked in a room that only 5 people have access to. And you guessed it, Eddie Tipton was one of those people. Now, inside of that room, there's a locked plexiglass box that you need 2 keys from 2 employees to open up, and then they pick the winning lottery numbers. And this whole process is recorded on cameras 24/7.
Well, then how could he possibly do it if it's recorded?
Done? Those cameras that record 1 frame every minute. Meaning that, theoretically, Eddie Tipton could have gone inside the room for some routine maintenance with
So he has to do this in less than 60 seconds.
Was turned away. In the span of 59 seconds, Eddie Tipton could have put in a USB key, changed an estimated 2 lines of code, and then he would know what the winning lottery numbers are that only he would know about. But in Eddie's defense, there was no evidence of any of this. All of the witnesses testified Eddie Tipton was the man in that video. Even the person that had sold him that lotto ticket and the hot dog said it was him. But Eddie Tipton's defense had a rebuttal to that. They said that that was actually impossible because Eddie Tipton is not a hot dog guy, that he's more of a jack-in-the-box man. And honestly, I can tell. So what happened here?
How is that a defense?
Bought the winning lottery ticket, gave that to a good friend named Robert Rhodes, who
that
then
is
gave
not
it
a
to
defense.
his attorney, who then gave it to another attorney that specializes in hiding money, and that's how he got to the situation. So Eddie had access, Eddie knew how to commit the crime, there were cell phone records, Facebook messages, all going back 10 years that linked him to Robert Rhodes. So the jury would rule guilty, and Eddie would be sentenced to 10 years in jail. But the story is far from over. Now remember when Eddie said he wanted a fast and swift trial, and Rob Sands thought maybe that was a little bit odd.
Lottery tickets.
More fraud out there? Well, after the trial, the feds would comb through 44,000 winning lottery tickets across all of the states for over a decade. And they would cross-reference the winners with Eddie Tipton's Facebook friends, phone numbers, LinkedIn's, and
did they find more?
Some strange coincidences came up. On November 23rd, 2005, Eddie Tipton's brother won a $600,000.
Okay, why would he give it to his brother? I mean, seriously? The brother of the guy who makes the winning numbers won a jackpot. And that was not suspicious? Did nobody check this stuff? If I knew someone who was responsible for the winning numbers and his brother won the lottery, I would immediately suspect that it's an inside job. Because that's too much of a coincidence.
$1 jackpot in
Who else?
Colorado. Eddie Tipton's program
More family
was
members?
used in Colorado. On December 29, 2007, Robert Rhodes had won $800,000 in Wisconsin. Eddie Tipton's program was used in Wisconsin. On November 23, 2011, Kyle Kahn, who was a good friend of Eddie Tipton's brother, won $1.2 million
so it's friends
in
of
Oklahoma.
friends
Eddie
and
Tipton's
so
program
on.
was used there. And on December 29, 2010, in Kansas, Eddie Tipton's
what the-
ex-girlfriend that he met on eHarmony won $22,000. Was all
$22,000? $22,000? That's not even worth it. The 600,000, 800,000, 1.4 million, that was worth it. That was worth doing all of this stuff for. But 22,000? Maybe it's because it was his ex-girlfriend. But why would he let her win anyway?
This all just God's coincidences. Now, besides Eddie Tipton being the main connection, you might notice that it was only 2 dates that were winning, November 23rd and December 29th. Now, again, I mean, there was no evidence of this program until they found a storage unit that had one computer that was used to do the winning lotto numbers in 2007. Right there in plain sight on the computer, they discovered the code that Eddie had
There's his
actually
code.
used, and it was exactly how they theorized. On those 2 dates, it would put in a specific input number so that the random number generator would be something that Eddie always knew for the winning numbers for the lottery. So with enough evidence to tie him to 5 hacked lottery drawings, Eddie Tipton finally confessed.
Mr. Tipton, I'm Kim
So it's
from
just
KCTI.
5?
What's your reaction?
Not anymore?
Shock. That's it.
But Eddie claimed that he
Just
was
shocked that he
never
got
in
caught.
the lottery scam business, and actually said he was a
How?
accidental felon. He said one day he was playing around with the program and
Accidental?
realized a crucial flaw, noticed he could exploit it, and then just left the hacked program there for
Ah, yes, of course. He discovered an exploit, decided not to fix it, and then suddenly people close to him, as well as just him, win the lottery. But yeah, I'm sure it's just an accident. Yeah, totally no foul play at hand here. No, definitely not.
over a decade. I mean, all the
Does he
situation
expect anyone
was
to believe
a geeky
that?
computer hacker who was just messing around with the program, who's so genius that he just, oh, sorry. Oh. And Eddie really believes this, stating, "I'm a single guy making about $100,000 a year. I didn't need the money." With that, Eddie Tipton will be sentenced to 25 years in prison, which you would be surprised to learn Eddie's out on parole, and still claims that he had never done it.
How can he claim he never done it? He was already sentenced. At this point, just admit it. Everyone knows he's guilty. You'd have to be an absolute fool to believe that he's innocent and that he didn't do it, with this much evidence against him. And all of this because he had to open his mouth when the cashier asked him if he wanted a hot dog. He should have just had someone else buy the ticket. He shouldn't have done it himself. If he hadn't, he probably could have continued this for a few more years. The fact he wasn't caught up until this point shows that this worked, as long as he himself didn't buy the ticket. At least he can't scam any more lotteries now. So I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, consider subscribing and leaving a like. If you're interested, why not watch this video right here. And with that, I hope I'll see you in the next video.